Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. Tonight, Thursday night hangout, we're going to be doing start sits. Get your questions loaded up in the chat room. I'm going to be going over the start sit charts. If you go to thefantasyfellowship.com and the links in the description below, click on week 8, and that's all the charts that you need to know. We got, I highly recommend checking out that snap count video too. That helps you kind of figure out what's going on. But there's some charts on here, and then of course we get to our Thursday night football game, the Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. No Davante Adams, no Allen Lazard. What's the Packers' offensive outlook going to look like? I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a big night for Aaron Jones tonight. So I'm into Aaron Jones hardcore. We have a what's up, Lucius? We have a Randall Cobb question. Julio hasn't practiced in 2 days. I'm starting Randall Cobb here. He's the only guy healthy here. I actually had Marquez Valdes-Scantling in here earlier this morning, but he looks like he's not going to play. So it's Randall Cobb, Equanimeous St. Brown as the top 2 wide receivers. Go ahead and start Randall Cobb. Julio is hard to trust, man. In the snap counts last week, he didn't even play 50% of the snaps last week. So just a bum hamstring. I don't want to risk starting him and have him pull something in the first quarter. So for me, Randall Cobb's probably the guy you want here. But I don't know if anyone has any more questions on the Cardinals and the Packers game. Load them up here. I'm probably trying to start as many Cardinals as I can. Murray, Chase Edmonds is a running back 2 in PPR. You're getting Hopkins in your lineup. I think Zach Ertz, if you were able to pick him up the last couple of weeks, he's a tight end 1. And then Christian Kirk and AJ Green continue to be disrespected. I think they're wide receiver 3 flexes. And then James Conner, one of our preseason favorites here. If you were with us for the draft prep, James Conner's looking like a good play tonight. Fabian says DJ or Rojo and Claypool or Green. DJ Moore and Rojo or Claypool and Green. Assuming that's AJ Green, I'm going to go with Claypool and AJ Green. AJ Green's more valuable than Ronald Jones. Who will score more, Jones or D Hop? I'm going to go with Aaron Jones in this one. Like, he is the focal point of the offense tonight. And in games where Davante Adams has not played, it's been the Aaron Jones show. So I just want to pull up what he's done. So I think Davante missed maybe a couple games last year. Let me see what I got. So I can't remember exactly what I thought. Our guy missed weeks. He missed weeks 3 and 4 last year for sure, and he pulled up halfway through the Detroit game. So in both those games against the Saints and the Falcons, Aaron Jones scores a touchdown in each of them, almost 70 yards rushing per game, and then a handful of catches. But in 2019, when Davante Adams was not playing, Aaron Jones, I think Davante got hurt in that Philadelphia game. But Aaron Jones, weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8, these were games where Davante Adams was not playing. Aaron Jones put up a 49 spot. That's 4 touchdowns against the Cowboys. And then he scored another 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. So if everything were to go perfect for Aaron Jones tonight, he's looking at a potential 40-plus point game. But he feels good for, 15 to 20 points tonight. So Christian Kirk or Schultz non-PPR. Give me Christian Kirk. So I really like Dalton Schultz. But the Michael Gallup's back. That's going to probably just limit the upside of kind of everybody in that offense. So I think I would rather roll with Christian Kirk. The Packers are starting their top 2 cornerbacks are out. They're starting a rookie. He's a first-round pick in Eric Stokes, but they're starting Rasul Douglas and Chandon Sullivan. So if you guys have ever heard of them, that's good news, I guess. But I'm going to roll with Christian Kirk. He's been hot. I think I don't get like the Christian Kirk, man. Like, people are just not realizing that they have a pretty good wide receiver 3 on their hands. Let me just pull this up real quick. So he's only had 1 bad game in PPR format, so 1.5. That's not acceptable. But for the most part, he's either getting you a touchdown or he's getting a handful of PPR points. So I like Christian Kirk tonight. 10-team PPR flex: DJ Moore, Patterson, Shep, Edmonds, Waddle, Sanders. This is tough. I really love Cordero Patterson. That's probably the guy that I'm going to go with. I'm assuming Sanders is Emmanuel Sanders. For me, I'm gonna continue to go Cordero Patterson because he's guaranteed touches more so than anybody else on that list. So Patterson's probably the guy I'm going to go with. David Johnson. What's the question? David Johnson or Rojo and Claypool or Green. If you're starting a running back there, you're going with David Johnson. I did put at the beginning of the show here. I saw this news headline and I was like, what? Aaron Wilson of Sports Talk 790 writes the Texans are expected to feature David Johnson, which makes sense to me. He had a good PPR floor anyways with Mark Ingram there, but if he's going to get more carries and more involved and more snaps, David Johnson all of a sudden is the guy to play there over Ronald Jones. And then Chase Claypool or AJ Green. I'll go with Chase Claypool. I feel like he's a little bit safer of a play. AJ Green has looked good though, but I'm going to roll with Chase Claypool against the Cleveland Browns. So my apologies for messing that up, Fabian. Do I trade away DJ Moore for Mitchell and Carter? I don't think I should. Nope, I'm going to keep DJ Moore in that case. The only way that would make sense to do it is if DJ Moore was like your wide receiver 3 or 4 and you had someone you could pull up, or like if you really needed 2 starting running backs, I think that would make sense, but I think your teams are going to be good. Mike Davis, it didn't look good for him last week, I'll be honest. Cordero Patterson dominated the touches there, and Mike Davis didn't receive a single target. I think what I'm going to do with Mike Davis, try to hold one more week. If you can roster him through the Carolina game, let's wait and see if anything changes. But if we get another game where Mike Davis doesn't get any catches, if he doesn't, get any meaningful amount of volume, Mike Davis might be a drop candidate next week. Dalton Schultz or Noah Fant? Interesting question. I'm going to let's go take a look at our, I clicked the wrong button. We're going to click on the fantasy points allowed chart. So Dalton Schultz going up against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have not allowed a touchdown to the tight ends all season. They've allowed 22 catches for 316 yards, about 8.93 points per game. So that's not looking good for him. Whereas Noah Fant, the Washington football team, they've allowed 42 catches, 499 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I'm probably going to roll with Noah Fant in this one just based on the matchups. A game where it's in Denver. I would expect the passing game to work. Everything's been kind of working against the football team. We just saw Robert Tonyan get out of a slump last week. So I'm going to probably roll with Noah Fant. And again, the Cowboys offense, they're getting healthier. They're coming off of a bye. They get Michael Gallup back. I'm a little bit hesitant there to see what Dalton Schultz can do against Noah Fant. Darius Slayton, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kendrick Bourne, or more on the Jets. So that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm going to cross him off the list. I'm going to cross off Kendrick Bourne off the list too. The Chargers, the best team against opposing wide receivers right now. So probably not trying to go against the grain there with Kendrick Bourne. So it comes down to Darius Slayton, who, if we see, I guess it's kind of hard because they play on Monday night. So if we get any inkling that Kadarius Toney or Sterling Shepard might not play, or Kenny Galladay, I'm probably trying to get Darius Slayton in my lineup. If he's the top receiver available, I want to get him in there. If he's the second receiver, I'm probably still trying to get him in there against the Chiefs. And then otherwise I'll go with Elijah Moore. But either way, it's probably a pretty good bet that one of Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay, I'm assuming one of those guys sit. So Slayton, he played well last weekend. It's a tough game against the Chiefs there. I think Slayton's probably the answer right now. Christian Kirk's on my waivers in 10-man league. We got to go get Christian Kirk off the waivers in a 10-man league. I just want to look real quick. Christian Kirk, man, when I do my waiver wire stuff, he's always under 40% available. And on the season right now, we're talking wide receiver 23, which is basically the same amount of value as Robert Woods. So that's pretty important. Christian Kirk is more valuable right now than Tyler Lockett, Hunter Renfrow, Henry Ruggs, AJ Green, Tim Patrick. So he's a fringe wide receiver 3 flex. This one was weird because there was nothing. So the Austin Eckler injury, there was nothing about an injury yesterday. Let me look at the practice reports. And it's especially weird because this team's coming off of a bye week where everyone should be healthy. So he didn't make the injury report on Wednesday. Thursday, it pops up with the D-not practice with a hip injury. So I'm thinking we didn't hear anything too crazy, just that he didn't practice. If it was more serious, we would have heard something about it being more serious. So I'm going to wait and see. Hopefully he's limited on Friday, and maybe it was just a day of rest. Maybe his hip was just a little sore from something on happening on Wednesday. But I think he's going to be just fine. 10-team PPR, pick 2, Chase, JT, Waddle, Mike Williams, Patterson. Oh my goodness. Aiden, your team is disgustingly good. If these are our options, we only pick 2 of them. I think Jamar Chase has proven that he needs to be in our lineups going forward. So he kind of separates himself amongst the rest there. Jonathan Taylor might be the safest play of everybody here. Let me look at the Titans real quick. The Tennessee Titans are actually, where are they? I can't read right now. The Tennessee Titans, they haven't really allowed too many receiving backs to score here, but they've allowed 547 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. I think Jonathan Taylor is probably a must start for me at this point. So I'm leaning Chase and JT. I like Waddle. Still feels a little bit hard to trust over guys like JT and Chase. Mike Williams, though, and Cordero Patterson are both fantastic options, but those guys, again, seem more boom bust, a little bit harder to trust. I like Chase and Jonathan Taylor right now. Gordon or Herbert? I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert, just because we know that he's going to get the touches. He's going to get pretty much all the touches. The running backs match up against the 49ers here. They're giving up the 17th most PPR points, and that's almost 24 PPR points per game. And with the split between Herbert and Damien Williams, it's probably more 80% towards Khalil Herbert. So you're looking at an upside of like maybe 18 fantasy points or so. So I'll go Khalil Herbert. The Gordon-Javonte Williams split is just annoying, and the Washington football team actually limits running backs. The thing about Washington football team too is it's a total funnel defense. Teams are just going to abandon the run and start passing on them because they know that that's what works. So do I like the Bengals kicker or the Titans kicker? Titans kicker on the road at Indy. Bengals kicker on the road against the Jets. Who's more likely to score points in that game? Let me see. So for implied point totals, they have Indy, Tennessee at 49.5. They got the Jets and the Bengals here at 43. I'm going to roll with the Titans kicker just because more points are expected. And that's a tough divisional game where those games usually get kind of, they get interesting. It's either a blowout or a really high-scoring fun game. Christian Kirk or Randall Cobb? Oh, Harris, that's the toughest question of the night, isn't it? It's probably Randall Cobb because he's the de facto number 1 receiver tonight, whereas Kirk is kind of that number 2, number 3 receiver. So just based on the odds, like Randall Cobb's probably going – it's almost a guarantee that Cobb's going to lead that team in receptions and targets tonight. With Kirk, he kind of, tops off with 3 or 4 catches per game. So I think Randall Cobb's probably the higher percentage play. 8-team league, PPR, flex. Aiden's asking for Debo, Jefferson, Swifty, Sutton, Cooper, Kirk, Williams, Gainwell. Williams, I'm assuming that's Mike Williams. Let's go ahead and get DeAndre Swift locked in there against the Eagles. I think he's got the highest floor for PPR, and he's a top 5 running back right now, so I really, really like that. And then the last one, it's coming down to a couple receivers for me. I find it difficult to sit a guy like Justin Jefferson. It is on paper, it's kind of a tough matchup right now, but Justin Jefferson's the wide receiver 15 on the season right now. He really hasn't had a bad game yet. But Debo going up against the Chicago Bears, why does it still feel like it's kind of hard to trust Debo Samuel? Just looking at his game log real quick, though, he hasn't had less than 8 targets. His fewest receptions on a game has been 3. He also had a rushing touchdown in that game. So it's against the Bears. It's probably Debo Samuel. So I'm going to say Swift, and then it's a toss-up between Debo and Jefferson. I guess trust your gut. I'll probably lean with Debo. I got Golladay and Slayton. So if Golladay plays, I'll go Golladay. If not, I'll go Slayton. That's a great situation to be in. I like both guys. I'm excited about the Giants' offense, man. Like I feel bad for Daniel Jones because if you just get all the receivers healthy, you're talking Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton, and Kadarius Toney. And then you factor in a healthy Saquon Barkley and a healthy Evan Ingram. Like the Giants have a good array of weapons there. Melvin Gordon or David Johnson. My gut's telling me David Johnson, and that feels weird. But Melvin Gordon, again, going up against a tougher matchup against Washington, and he's splitting time with Javonte Williams kind of down the middle. Whereas David Johnson, I'm actually pretty optimistic. Even before the Mark Ingram trade, I was kind of telling people to, hey, go pick up David Johnson. David Johnson's currently the RB43 on the season. And then he's just been a good pass catching back. Last week he caught 5 for 27. So if this is full PPR for you, Fabian, I'm going to go with David Johnson. Because if he gets a similar workload that he got last week, I think it's going to be a safe PPR floor for him. Who do I drop for Kirk? Watson or Gainwell? Well, I guess the best question, Justin, would be: do you see yourself ever using Christian Kirk as a wide receiver? The way to go about this is you have to ask yourself questions. Am I more likely to use Kirk, Watson, or Gainwell? Whoever, especially if you already have like 5 good wide receivers on the team, you might not ever feel that inclined to start Christian Kirk. But if I had to pick just one, and assuming, like, I've seen some of your teams, you probably have a good quarterback option there ahead of Watson and Gainwell. If Gainwell's your RB4 or 5, I'm probably not going to need him. So that's a tough question. I think I'm gonna release Gainwell here, and then because just Watson, we just want to hold on one more week with Watson and see what we can get out of him. 10-team PPR flex. CeeDee Lamb, Claypool, Patterson, Chuba, Saquon, Shep. I'm going with. There's only 2 options here for me. It's CeeDee or Cordero Patterson. I think CeeDee versus the Vikings is probably the best play. I think Cordero Patterson's a really close second, though, but I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb. Do I also drop Mooney and get Kirk and start Kirk over Mitchell? Go get Kirk over Mooney, but start Mitchell. Go with Mitchell over Kirk. But go ahead and definitely get rid of Mooney. I like the Kirk upgrade there. Do I drop Michael Thomas for Randall Cobb? Only do this if you need Randall Cobb to start for you tonight. Otherwise, things like Green Bay is going to have 10 days to get the COVID stuff under wraps here. And then they play the Chiefs next weekend, which should be a barn burner here too. But I'm going to wait on. If you needed Randall Cobb to start tonight, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, I'm going to wait for Michael Thomas. That's got better rest of season value. Is it okay to drop Tyler Boyd and pick up Saints defense and stash them for the playoffs? Well, anyone immediately pick up Tyler Boyd? Someone's probably going to pick up Tyler Boyd immediately just off of name value alone. Let me look real quick at the Saints schedule. I'm assuming the Saints are going to be your second defense. Let's just take a peek here. So the Saints playing well on both sides of the ball right now. Their playoff schedule is the Jets, Tampa Bay. Probably don't want to avoid that one, but they get Miami and Carolina week 16 and 17. So I think this is a good opportunity here to potentially stash them, but they're going to get Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Tennessee, Philadelphia, Buffalo. To me, this is almost just way too long to stash a team like this that could potentially be bounced around. I don't see anyone starting the Saints defense against Buffalo or Dallas. So I think there might be a chance to get them back into our lineups, or otherwise someone else will emerge. So I think for now, it's too long to wait for me to burn up a roster spot with the defense. Whereas Tyler Boyd, if anything happened to Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd's going to be back in our lineups. So I think I'm going to hold on to Tyler Boyd. 10-team PPR. Emmanuel Sanders, Brandon Cooks, Myles Gaskin, Michael Carter, Darrell Williams, Kenneth Gainwell. I'm probably going to go with Emmanuel Sanders or Darrell Williams. I think those are the top 2 options for me. Gainwell's kind of fun. This is a tough question because these guys are all like top 30 running backs, and you got a pretty fun receiver here. But if it's PPR, I feel safe with Emmanuel Sanders racking up a handful of catches. Let me just show you the stats real quick. Where's my fantasy points allowed? The receivers, Miami Dolphins allowing the 3rd most PPR points to the wide receiver position. They've allowed over 103 catches, 1,385 yards and 10 touchdowns. So I think it's a really bright spot for Sanders. If you want to use a running back, Darrell Williams is probably one of the safer touchdown plays. Matt Bain, what's going on, man? Hope you're having a good evening. He's asking Christian Kirk or AJ Green for flex in PPR. Okay, so we're going to play we're basically just flipping a coin here at this point. So AJ Green is the outside receiver. They kind of use Christian Kirk inside out. So he's more of the slot guy, which means Chandon Sullivan's probably the inside receiver. And I also like Green Bay's linebackers and safeties to kind of cover that inside. Whereas AJ Green, the outside receiver, probably getting matched up against Rasul Douglas, who I don't know if too many people know. He's not the best cornerback. He's scrappy. To me, AJ Green is probably the choice. It doesn't feel good, but I think let me just go to FF Today real quick. I'm curious what AJ Green, his floor has been for targets. 1 second. So AJ Green currently the wide receiver 34 on the season. Christian Kirk, the wide receiver 23. And the difference is I think Kirk just has one more touchdown. But AJ Green last week, 3 for 3 on his target, 66 yards. He's basically a 6-target man. He's had 2 games here, a blip on the radar of 2 and 3. But otherwise, he's been a pretty safe guy there. Let me just do my due diligence and check on Christian Kirk real quick. Christian Kirk, 5 to 8 targets is his upward ceiling here. And he's only had 1 bad game. So I think the safe play is probably just leave Christian Kirk in the lineup. If you're feeling risky, go with AJ Green. So I'm going to say Christian Kirk. Big Booty Judy. What up with Jerry Judy? What's the question here? I love Jerry Judy. I don't know what the question is, but we love Jerry Judy. Start Jerry Judy this week. Anywhere you got him, try to get him in. Also, which defense should I pick up for next week? Fins or the Raiders? Let me roll real quick here. Let me go to the schedule. And let's go to NFL Week 9. Let's see here. Week 9 schedule. Are the Colts available? The Colts against the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football. I would say the Colts would be a priority if they haven't been scooped up yet. You're asking for the Fins or the Raiders. Miami plays against Houston. Miami is just hard to trust right now. They're one of the worst statistical defenses in the league. I think the Colts aren't owned. That's the move, man. I'm going to go with the Colts. Whether it's Mike White or Joe Flacco, it's a home game for the Colts. That's probably the position you want to be in. So if the Colts are not the Colts not available or the Colts aren't owned, that would be my preference choice. But if you're looking at the Fins or the Raiders, I'm probably going to go with Miami Dolphins in that one because one, it's a home game for New York, and Saquon Barkley is likely back in that one. So I'm going to say if you had to choose between the Dolphins and the Raiders, it's probably Miami. But if you're looking elsewhere, that's probably the best option here. For sure, the Colts. So I think the Colts, if the Colts aren't, the Colts are owned. Dang it. Then I'm going to go with Miami. Just Saquon Barkley and the Giants receivers getting healthier. This could be a fast-paced game in New York there. Let me see what else we got. Tyler Boyd or Brandon Cooks rest of season. Brandon Cooks is probably the answer. He's the clear number 1 for the Texans. And with Tyrod Taylor back, Tyrod Taylor was averaging 20 points per game the first couple games there. So Tyrod Taylor, Brandon Cooks, I think I feel better about that than the third receiver for the Bengals. 10-team PPR flex. Woods, Judy, Gaskin, Shepard, Landry, Damien Harris. Damien Harris, man. Damien Harris against the Chargers. So here's the thing. The Chargers, we think they have a good defense. They're actually, again, very, very good against opponents' wide receivers. But if we look at running backs, the Chargers are the 4th worst team against running backs in PPR formats. They've allowed 8 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown, basically 29 PPR points per game here. So Damien Harris, probably a guy with the safest floor and probably the best bet for a touchdown. The only other player I'm going to consider is probably Jerry Jeudy. So 10-team PPR, I'm probably going to say Damien Harris or Jerry Jeudy. If you're feeling risky, let's go Jerry Jeudy. But what time is it right now? 6:54. I got another 5 minutes or so to get out of here and prep for this Packer game. But if you guys got any more questions, keep firing them up. Don't be afraid to go check the Fantasy Fellowship out. Again, and these fantasy points allowed charts, man, if you guys go to the website here, you just hover over here, click on fantasy points allowed, and you can see all of the stats that we've been kind of pulling up here. But again, the worst teams right now against allowing PPR points, Washington, and you can kind of see green equals you want to play those positions. So green is quarterback and receiver against the football team. And no problem, man. Thank you for you guys. I'm trying to kind of adapt and do things. In the past, I would just kind of cover the content that I had typed up. But if it helps to just answer and bang out some questions, that's probably what I'm going to do going forward. Pick 2, Randall Cobb, Christian Kirk, or Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman Jr. for sure. I think Michael Pittman Jr. for sure is the top guy I prefer there. A really good matchup against Tennessee. Let me show you real quick what Tennessee does against wide receivers. They're the 2nd worst against wide receivers. They've allowed a ton of yards, receptions, and touchdowns here. So Pittman Jr., easily the best option for me. And then between Cobb and Christian Kirk, Cobb's probably the #1 target, so I think the percentages are probably better in his favor. Christian Kirk's probably that 3rd or 4th target. It's hard to predict, but I'm going to go with Randall Cobb and Michael Pittman. 10-team PPR: Pittman, Judy, Shep, Darrell, Landry, Gallup. It's between Pittman and Jerry Jeudy, and here's what's cool too. So Aiden's question: we're looking at the 2 worst passing defenses against wide receivers. Michael Pittman Jr. going up against the Titans and Jerry Jeudy going up against the Washington football team. So to me, I would just cross everybody else off the list. I'm purely looking at those 2 guys for PPR leagues. So it's kind of it's a tolerance. I think the safe play is Michael Pittman. The riskier, more exciting, sexier play is probably Jerry Jeudy. So if you got the risk tolerance for Jerry Jeudy, that's who I'm just a big Jerry Jeudy fan, so I'm always going to say Jerry Jeudy. But if you want to take the risk, go with Jeudy. If you want the safe points, go with Pittman Jr. But man, this was fun. We got a lot of good questions in and out so far. But I'm excited for this Packer game, man. I think a lot of people are going to be. I'm just hoping the Packers don't lay a Saints game. I'm hoping it's a competitive game into the 4th quarter. But we have a good slate of. I miss London games. Just waking up and having football on. I think there should almost be a London game every weekend. And then as far as a weekend stream, I'm going to be headed home to Green Bay this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a stream in there. It might be Saturday. I'm not sure. But if you guys need questions answered, you can always comment on the YouTube channel. Or one of the best ways to probably reach me for a comment is to follow us on TikTok. It's just the Fantasy Fellowship, on TikTok. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me for questions. So if you guys need anything, that's where I would do it. 10-team PPR: James, Connor, Darrell, Shep, Sanders, Judy, Landry, Elijah Moore. So PPR league, I'm crossing James Conner off the list. I'm purely looking at Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Mitchell. So Elijah Mitchell, the beautiful part about Elijah Mitchell is I can guarantee you he's going to get 15 plus touches in that game. So if you want the safe answer, that's Elijah Mitchell. And again, if you want the fun, sexy answer, it's Jerry Jeudy. If you can stomach it and play a little bit of risk, I love Jerry Jeudy. But Elijah Mitchell, probably the safest guy there just based on volume. Pick 2, Fournette, Joe Mixon, or Mike Williams. Whew. Well, Joe Mixon's he's the best play of the week for running backs. Let me show you. The New York Jets allowing the most PPR points to the running back position. They've allowed 10 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving. So that's 11 total touchdowns to the running backs. I think you want Joe Mixon in there for sure. Leonard Fournette against the Saints. The Saints are a little bit tougher of a matchup on paper here. They're allowing the 4th least points to the running back position. And then Mike Williams here going up against the New England Patriots. A little bit better of a matchup on paper. Middle of the road here. So for me, I'm going with Joe Mixon for sure. And then I think I'm going to go with Mike Williams. It feels riskier, but the Saints defense has been a pretty limiting to the running back position so far. So I think that's probably where I'll go. But I get it. If you want to play it safe, go with Fournette. For me, I'm going to roll the dice and go for the upside because we know Mike Williams can hit a 30 burger. So I'll say Joe Mixon and Mike Williams there. But if you guys got any more questions, fire them up. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out of here in a minute or two. This was a lot of fun tonight. And again, if you guys got any questions Friday or Saturday or any concerns, hit me up on the Twitter, TikTok, wherever you need. But for this one, enjoy the game tonight, guys. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good one. We'll see you later. Peace.